Hello and welcome to PrimeScoreX. In this lesson, we are working on premise and conclusion indicators, useful clues, not mechanical rules. This is part of our Foundations of LSAT reasoning sequence, where each video adds one reasoning tool you can reuse across many surface topics. Words such as because, since, therefore, and thus often signal logical roles, but indicator language is not decisive. The objective is not to memorize a label. It is to recognize the structure quickly enough that your answer standard is clear before the choices start competing for your attention. Start with the definition and operational terms. Words such as because, since, therefore, and thus often signal logical roles, but indicator language is not decisive. Context, grammar, contrast, and the inferential relationship between statements determine the actual structure. On the LSAT, the same concept can appear in science, policy, business, law, or everyday situations. The subject matter changes, but the reasoning relationship does not. Your first job is therefore to strip away the story and identify what each statement is doing logically. Here's the structural question to ask. What information is given? What claim is at issue? And what relationship must hold between them? Context, grammar, contrast, and the inferential relationship between statements determine the actual structure. If you can answer those three questions in plain English, you are already reducing the number of plausible wrong answers because you know the level of support, direction, or logical force the task requires. Try changing the nouns while keeping the logical form. If the reasoning still works, you have probably identified the transferable structure rather than memorized the story. Consider, the bridge is closed because inspectors found structural damage, and the city therefore should reroute buses. The inspection finding supports the closure claim, and the closure claim helps support the recommendation. One sentence can therefore function as a conclusion at one level and a premise at the next. When two interpretations compete, choose the one that preserves every stated condition with the fewest new assumptions. That habit will later support both LR and RC accuracy. Step 1 is diagnosis. Do not begin by asking which choice sounds best. Ask what the stimulus or fact set establishes before the choices appear. If there is an argument, locate the conclusion and its support. If there is no argument, identify the constraints or facts. If the stem names a task, translate that task into a standard for correctness. Step 2 is to locate the pressure point. Words such as because, since, therefore, and thus often signal logical roles, but indicator language is not decisive. Context, grammar, contrast, and the inferential relationship between statements determine the actual structure. For assumption work, that is often the gap. For inference, it is the strongest claim the facts genuinely support. For flaw, it is the defective move from evidence to conclusion. For conditional reasoning, it is direction. For causal reasoning, it is whether alternatives have been controlled. During untimed review, say the relationship in plain English before using symbols. If the plain English version is unclear, the diagram will only hide the confusion. Before reading all 5 answer choices, make a prediction. Your prediction can be abstract. I need something that rules out an alternative cause. I need the author's final claim. Or I need a statement that must be true but stays modest. A prediction gives you a measuring stick, so the wording of the answers does not redefine the task for you. Wrong answers often preserve the topic while changing the logic. One may be true but irrelevant. Another may help but not be required. Another may reverse a conditional relationship, strengthen a quantifier, or describe a flaw the argument never makes. Eliminate by naming the defect. I don't like it is not reviewable reasoning. Too strong because the stimulus proves only some is. When two interpretations compete, choose the one that preserves every stated condition with the fewest new assumptions. That habit will later support both LR and RC accuracy. A second trap is solving a different question than the one asked. A fact that weakens an argument might be interesting on a necessary assumption question, but the standard is not simply, does this matter? Likewise, a plausible inference is not enough for must be true. Keep the stem's burden of proof active until you select the answer. Use notation only when it lowers cognitive load. Conditional chains, quantifiers, and multi-step argument rules may benefit from a compact diagram. A straightforward causal gap, or main conclusion question, often does not. Diagramming is a tool, not a ritual. If the symbols take longer to interpret than the prose, they are not helping. During untimed review, say the relationship in plain English before using symbols. If the plain English version is unclear, the diagram will only hide the confusion. Under timed conditions, aim for a clean first pass. Task, structure, prediction, elimination, confirmation. If you are stuck between two choices, compare them on the exact standard. Which one is supported more directly? Which one changes scope? Which one requires an extra assumption? If the distinction remains expensive, flag and move, rather than letting one item control the section. The advanced edge is precision and degree. Words like some, most, all, could, likely, must, primarily, and only can decide a question. High-level LR performance often comes down to rejecting a choice that captures the general idea but overstates what the argument needs or what the facts prove. When two interpretations compete, choose the one that preserves every stated condition with the fewest new assumptions. That habit will later support both LR and RC accuracy. Review this topic by reconstructing your original thought process before reading an explanation. Where did the error begin? Did you misidentify the conclusion? Misread the stem, miss the gap, translate a rule incorrectly, or fall for a distractor after making a correct prediction? Tag the earliest failure point, because that is the skill to retrain. A useful drill is to take 5 examples of premise and conclusion indicators, useful clues, not mechanical rules, and work them untimed with written justifications. For each one, write the task, the controlling relationship, your prediction, and 1 sentence for why every rejected answer fails. Then repeat with a modest time limit and see which step becomes less stable under pressure. During untimed review, say the relationship in plain English before using symbols. If the plain English version is unclear, the diagram will only hide the confusion. Recap. Words such as because, since, therefore, and thus often signal logical roles, but indicator language is not decisive. Context, grammar, contrast, and the inferential relationship between statements determine the actual structure. The reusable method is diagnosis before choice evaluation, precise control of logical force, a prediction tied to the stem, and elimination by a named defect. The LSAT can change the topic and vocabulary, but it cannot hide the underlying reasoning if you know what relationship you are looking for. That completes premise and conclusion indicators, useful clues, not mechanical rules. The previous lesson was intermediate conclusions and subarguments. Next, continue with mapping argument structure, evidence to conclusion. Keep building the sequence in order. The value of this playlist comes from combining these individual tools into one automatic LR decision process.